Greetings, Dr. Mark Winton here, and I wanted to welcome you all to the Spring 2018 course, Criminal Justice Perspectives of Genocide. And I wanted to introduce the course to you and provide some information. Of course, all of this is located on web courses, and you'll find the syllabus. The information regarding the textbooks is on the syllabus, and also you'll find the assignments, class notes, and other material, as well as a way to email each other, email me, and to post your assignments for others to read and comment on. One of the things I wanted to mention were the textbooks, and we have 4 books, and I think what we've seen, what I've certainly seen in the last 15, 20 years, has been a move to slowly bring criminal justice work into genocide studies. It's still very, very rare to find courses on genocide in criminal justice programs. In fact, I developed this course myself as a new course to add to our electives. Also have this course as an undergraduate course that I teach as well. Without any particular order, this book here, we have Darfur and the Crime of Genocide by Professors Hagen and Ryman Richmond. I think is will be, if it's not already, the classic criminal justice textbook on genocide. And what they do in this book is take a look at the genocide in Sudan, but also show you how you can apply criminal justice related theories and also a variety of research methods to understand genocide. So I think Hagen and Ryman Richmond really at least are the contemporary founders in part of criminal justice genocide studies. And this book just came out, Professor Rafter's book, The Crime of All Crimes Toward a Criminology of Genocide. And I think this book here really brings us into where we need to be. And it's just fascinating that it is in the year 2016, when this book was published, that we really get a nice overview of applying criminal justice ideas to several genocides. I think there's 8 genocides that are covered in the textbook, and she also does an excellent job illustrating the comparative analysis method. So you're going to see different methodologies in the course as well. And then Jean Hatzfield's book, Machete Season, The Killers in Rwanda Speak. Your book may look a little different than mine. Mine's an older version in hardback. You may have the paperback, but anyway, The Killers in Rwanda Speak, Machete Season. This, to me, is the book on trying to understand perpetrators. And so it's a fascinating study where the journalist, Mr. Hatzfield, goes into a Rwandan prison and interviews those who have been convicted of participating in the genocide. And finally, the paperback, Dr. Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, really, I think is extremely important to look at the nature of victimology in concentration camps during the Holocaust, and also survivors of the Holocaust. And I think Dr. Frankl's book is probably one of the most important books that we have, certainly in the field, and if not, looking at books in general. And you probably have heard of this before. You might have read this book in high school. You might have read it in another course. And the first half details his experience, looking at through the lens of a psychiatrist at his experiences as a prisoner in a concentration camp. And then the second part looks at his development of a method of psychotherapy to assist those in distress. and so it's a fascinating analysis as well. So we have some different books in part focusing on different genocides, using different methodologies coming from different disciplines, and that really, I think, is part of the nature of the field. It's very interdisciplinary. And as I mentioned, the criminal justice field has neglected genocide for a long time, and we're moving very slowly into developing an area of criminal justice genocide studies. We've seen other fields like psychology, political science, anthropology, sociology, and legal studies really, take a lead. History, of course, as well, and take a lead in developing different courses and having textbooks and research studies published. So criminal justice is moving in that direction slowly. I actually didn't start studying genocide until around 2001. That's really when I started studying genocide. Prior to that, a lot of my research and work was in the psychotherapy area, also focusing on sex crimes, interpersonal violence, and other violent crimes. And so I came into the study of genocide later on in my career, but I found that I also realized that there was a lot of areas that had been neglected in criminal justice. In my early years, I was able to publish several articles fairly rapidly because there just wasn't material out there. And that's like I said, that's slowly changing. We're even seeing some of the major criminal justice journals articles on genocide. And there'll be a variety of themes that we'll address throughout the class: agency versus structure, micro versus macro, comparative versus case study, group analysis, and focus on victims, survivors, perpetrators, bystanders, definitions and legal applications, and so forth. One of the areas that I think helps to kind of organize the study of genocide is looking at Toden and Parsons' questions that they present in the first chapter in their fourth edition, actually previous editions as well, Centuries of Genocide, Essays and Eyewitness Accounts. This is actually a textbook I use in the undergraduate class, which goes over multiple genocides, but has a format where the chapters the authors address the following questions: who committed the genocide, how was the genocide committed, why was the genocide committed, who were the victims, who was involved, what were the historical factors and trends related to that genocide, what were the long-range impacts, what have been the responses, how do scholars view the genocide, is there conflict within the field or fields, and how does the general public react or view the genocide today. You can also see that there's different definitions of genocide, and probably the one that we end up focusing on is the Genocide Convention, and we have that in more detail online and in our readings. But basically, genocide is defined as acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily injury or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. And one of the big debates, there's actually several big debates, but one is, acts committed with intent to destroy. That term intent becomes, conflictual in our research and applications, as we'll see. And then also you'll see that political groups are left out of this particular definition. So there's been other definitions to make up for some of those criticisms. And Professor Helen Fine asks, what does intent mean? And she states that intent is purposeful action or inaction. So we have some complexity there as well. I use Chalk and Johansson's types of genocides. Basically, they have 4 major types, and of course there may be overlap, but to eliminate a real or potential threat, to spread terror among real or potential enemies, to acquire economic wealth, and to implement a belief, a theory, or an ideology. And then there's some other definitions and terms that I have on the PowerPoint as well. And so one of the things here really is to recognize that we're really in the beginning phases, I think, of developing a criminal justice of genocide area of study. And to me, there seems to be only a handful of researchers in this area from the criminal justice field. We usually have a couple of sessions at the major conferences that do address genocide, but we're not talking about a lot. We're talking about very few. Again, few publications. Certainly, I'm not aware of a journal specifically devoted to criminal justice and genocide. And probably the major textbooks in the field we're going to read during the class, Rafters and Hagen and Richmond Ryman Richmond's text on Darfur. And the other thing, of course, that we'll see is that as we progress in the course, we'll take a look at what's going on currently in regards to possible genocides or genocides that are occurring right now as we progress through the course. So I wanted to welcome you all to the course, and if you have any questions at all, always feel free to email me at any time, and welcome.